Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Mehta. I'm editor-in-chief at Fast Company, and I'm very excited today to be speaking with Tom Wilson, Chairman, President, and CEO of the Allstate Corporation, and Tom is also board chair of the U.S. Chamber Foundation. At Allstate, he has been CEO since 2007 and became chair of the Allstate Corporation's board of directors in 2008. He's held key leadership positions at the organization since 1995, including running all the major operating units. But most relevant to this conversation is that Tom led the creation of the Our Shared Purpose statement in 2007 to make Allstate a purpose-driven corporation. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie. Nice to meet you.
So let's start by talking about what Allstate's shared purpose is.
Well, our purpose at its highest level really is our North Star. It's like what we follow, and it has various parts to it. When you say what's our purpose at Allstate is to help empower our customers by protecting them so they can achieve their hopes and dreams. And we try to make it aspirational and broad enough so that it can morph over time and we can adapt with our customers in the world.
And how did the pandemic change your perspective around purpose, if it did at all?
I think at first it helped me conclude it's really important. Whenever you're in a tumultuous period of time, having a North Star is really helpful. And so we could come back to our employees. And our shared purpose has more in it than just what are we trying to achieve for our customers. It has our values in it. So inclusive diversity and equity is one of our values, doing it ethically is a value. So we've used it really as a North Star. And I would say during the pandemic, it's been helpful to have a purpose-driven organization because you can't be a purpose-driven organization if you're not powered by purpose-driven people. And so having those purpose-driven people, when everything breaks loose and you're not in your office and you're at home and you're trying to figure out how to Zoom and everything else, you need to know why you're doing it because it gives you more energy. And that's been very helpful to us throughout the pandemic.
And for you as a leader, what are some of the big takeaways that you came away with the pandemic from about leading a purpose-driven organization?
Well, the first thing, and this is, you're trying not to look back and say how successful you've been, but I'm really glad we did it. And we started, in 2007, really. And we've had a long runway. And so it's embedded into kind of the fabric of our company. Almost every time we're talking about something, we're saying our shared purpose. So when you get to, whether it's a pandemic, we've had other times when there's been huge hurricanes or wildfires where we've had to have our people out. When our people are out trying to get around fire barriers or avoid water flooding, it's good for them to know what's a purpose, like why are we doing this? And it gives them more energy. So I feel like that's been quite helpful to us. I would say, as you look at, what has it changed about it? We looked at our purpose, our shared purpose during the pandemic. We said, what should be different? Because just because you say it once doesn't mean, like, I'm not in that camp of don't change it for 100 years. We've, I would say, refreshed it 3 times in 16 years. And this time we refreshed it around ways we think we needed to act differently in a virtual organization. So when we are done with the pandemic, whenever it's sort of under control, we'll be about 75% remote versus we were 20% remote before the pandemic. And so we said, well, how are we going to act differently? And we decided decision clarity and feedback were 2 things that are harder to do virtually. So we updated our shared purpose. We spent a bunch of time with our organization on it, and we're trying to embed new processes in place so that when we come to the new world, we're still as successful as we were coming into it.
Can you talk a little bit more about the process of evolving the shared purpose? You mentioned that there was a desire to supplement the shared purpose around the new way of working. Do those ideas bubble up from the bottom? Is that something that the leadership team decided that, it was time to take a look at things because of the changing way of work? How did that come about in practice?
Well, first I would say it's a team effort. And I don't just mean me and the senior leadership team, I mean our whole organization. and you want to be listening to your organization, saying, "Does this purpose work for you?" About how we got started on it was 2006. I just became CEO, and you take a new job and you become the managing editor, and you say, "Okay, what am I going to get done?" A couple of things, and I said, I want us to be more customer focused and to be a little more hard hitting, a little faster moving. And I decided it wasn't like we hadn't been working on that stuff. I said, we need more energy to do this. So we went down to a place in Florida that helps you think about your purpose to give you more energy. We came back all excited. We were so excited about it that we decided to have it be for all of our officers. We then decided, just not the 200 leadership group, we said, this is such a good thing, we should have our whole company be involved. So we've taken 38,000 people through this to help them achieve their purpose. And so it really started with an individual and saying, if you know what your own purpose is, it'll give you more energy. And we said, if that works for us, it should probably work for the whole company. It should work for an organization. So that was why we created our shared purpose. It was trying to instill that energy and create more energy and focus by being clear about what our purpose was.
Tom, I'd love you to talk a little bit more about how Allstate helps employees find their own personal purpose. It seems to be a topic that has moved to the fore throughout corporate America, particularly as we've seen so many employees say that as a result of the economic and health crises that we've been living through, they want their jobs to have meaning too. What are some of the ways that you have helped the people on your team find personal purpose at work?
Well, Stephanie, I agree that a bunch of people do want more about purpose. You hear it all the time in recruiting people. But I think it's been something that's been building for a while. And I think we could talk more about it, but I think, society is wanting in a whole bunch of ways, and people are looking for somebody to help fix it. And they think, they can do it. And so they want to be inspired to do that. So we started just because we said, if this is good for us and we have more energy, we have 43,000 employees, how great would it be if they had more energy too? So we really started as a way to kind of help them get engaged. We don't link it to our company purpose. We don't make them go through a process and say, come back and tell us why your purpose is aligned. And the logic is you give to get. So if we give you the opportunity to figure out what your personal purpose is, you'll find a way to embed what our purpose is as a company in your personal purpose, or you might not. But if you don't, then what you do is you realize, well, I'm not really aligned with what Allstate's doing. And rather than be a disengaged, grumpy employee who's, not doing anything, you go someplace else because you're trying to achieve your own personal purpose. Or maybe you're not disgruntled, maybe you're just not giving it 110%. And so what it does is we have found that give to get, not only does it help people value what Allstate's doing, helps them have a better life, but it also builds a stronger organization. So of all the things I've done as CEO of Allstate, the thing I'm most proud of is 38,000 people have had an opportunity to pursue their own purpose.
We've talked about personal purpose and corporate purpose. I know that another focus of the conference is resilience and preparedness for anything that may happen in the future. That's something you probably talk a lot about at Allstate. Is there something about resilience, corporate resilience specifically, that you've learned about over the course of your career that you can share with the audience?
Well, I've been through some ups and downs. So yes, you do. I think I would start with say that corporate resilience is like your own personal resilience. If you know what you want to do, then it gives you that energy to stick with it. If it's important to you, if it's not important to you, you're not going to be resilient. You're okay, whatever, I don't care that much. So the corporation has to be important to individuals, and the corporation has to be important to society. So I would start there. But then I would say in terms of getting through it, there's a couple of things. I just keep moving. Get some information. You're not going to get all the facts. Don't wait for all the facts. Try to look at, what happens if I make a wrong, and just make a decision and keep moving. I'd say secondly, be positive. Like, doubt is the enemy of moving forward. And so you just got to believe. There's sometimes when I look back and I think, I don't know why I believe that, but by believing it, it gives you the energy to really get through it. So I think perspective is also useful. Like, like it's just another decision. Like you can't get locked down and be frozen, because that never helps. Not moving is not a good. So I would keep moving, take risks, move forward, be positive, and then involve other people. And where if you involve other people in your quest, it'll be much easier to get through it. And people want to help. Like sometimes, we don't want to reach out and bother somebody with a problem. We think they're busy. I'm like, no, when you read, people like to help other people. So like, let them help you, and you'll get through whatever your problem is.
Tom, I know you get a variation of the question, what keeps you up at night, all the time, but I'd like to hear a little bit about your concerns around the corporate purpose and whether there are any threats or risk to corporate purpose that you worry about or that you feel you need to guard against.
Well, I don't know about guarding it. I mean, there are currently some, there are clearly headwinds towards corporate purpose. And that's, I think, people trying to decide what's the role of business. So if you think the role of business is to take care of your customers, most people agree with that. Like, why else are you in business? If you think the role of business is to show a profit, I agree with that too. And I think that's clearly there, because I think a profit is just a measure of whether you're adding any value. If the accountants do it and it's fancy and we've got all kinds of rules around it and stuff, but basically it's like, I created something, I gave it to you, Steph, and you said, yeah, I think it's worth about $10. And if my parts to do that were it cost $8, then I make a $2 profit. And that shows I added value. So I think taking care of customers, making profit a core to that. I think also, though, improving society and creating opportunity for your team members are two other really important parts of organizations and businesses. And I think that's why we exist. We exist. If you ask most of your employees why it exists, they won't tell you it's to make a profit. But many of them will say it's to help customers. Some of it's like, because you're helping me with my life. So if that's what your stakeholders are telling you, I expect you to help do that. Then you got to create opportunity for your team. And then I think improving society. And I think that's where you're hearing what people are saying today is, look, we got problems in society. Like, we need somebody to fix it. So they're looking to whoever they can, and they know business can help. So I think the headwinds are if people get too focused on the second one, which is just making money, because I think you can make money and do these other things. I don't think it's really that hard.
Yeah. And, do you face those headwinds at Allstate from shareholders? Do you face it from, bondholders? I'm just curious about whether or not your statement of shared purpose, which is right there on your website, and you've been very clear in articulating what you see as the role of Allstate in the world. Does that run up against conflict in certain circles?
I think the tide has turned on it, and so I spend a fair amount of time out talking to our shareholders, both the portfolio managers who are buying and selling, right, as well as the governance people. And I think the leadership of people like Larry Fink and BlackRock and others has really changed it. Like, people are ESG, environmental, social, governance, all over everything. People want it embedded into your strategy. They want to know what your purpose is. They want to know why you're doing it. And now they want more disclosure. It's going to move past what are you doing to disclosure, to what are your goals, to how I'm going to measure you. Now, we don't have the measurement on that like yet we do on profit. Like, so there, I don't know how many accountants there are in the world, but there's a lot of them. But I think we're headed down that path, which I think is a really good thing, because what that'll do is business will serve its purpose in society. And I think it's our time, really, as business. Like, I think some people might not want to be thrust into it. But if you think about other events where society has demanded people to do a different role or be an example. World War II, many women are not in the workforce. We create Rosie the Riveter, and look where we are today. We are so much better because we have so many highly talented, creative female leaders who are driving our world. Like, had we not forced that to happen because there was some outside stimulus, who knows how long it would have taken, right? I think the same thing is true with business today. You know, government's not really working as well as any of us would like, including the people in government. You know, our nonprofits don't have enough resources, and quite honestly, they don't have the business processes. Like, the business processes that exist at your publication are light years ahead of any other nonprofit, not because you're so much smarter, your people are so much better. It's just they've invested all their money in fixing problems. You've invested your money in creating systems and processes. So I think society's looking at business and say, hey, we need you. I think when we get all done, the role of business will be widely viewed as much broader than it is today.
Shifting gears back to the employees for a moment, you know, in addition to employees wanting more purpose out of work, we're also seeing lots of research suggesting that employees are more burned out than they've ever been. I think there's a recent McKinsey study that showed that something like 38% of women and 28% of men say that they feel like they have reached the point of burnout, and that's up 10 points from a year ago. What are some of the ways businesses can better address employee health and well-being?
You know, I wish I had really good answers to that. I think you're right. And I see it with our employees, you know, whether it's you're, you know, clicking on Zoom call to Zoom call, and you're like, oh my gosh, by the end of the day, you feel like you've just been, you know, things have been coming by you at a rapid pace, to losing that sort of sense of affiliation of, you know, just walking out of a meeting and how are you? How was your weekend? Or did you see that play? Can you believe this happened? So I think businesses, we do have this problem. I think focusing on affiliation and how do you create affiliation in a virtual world. Some people are really good at with Slack and Teams and stuff like that. But I think if you said, do businesses have the kind of processes around affiliation that we do and everything else? No, I would say the second thing is, and I think this is where we have to go on the journey, Stephanie, is we need to measure it differently. Like, you know, we should be thinking about employee wellness differently. Like, you know, how many people have a living wage, you know, how stressed out are they? And if we measure it as a business, we will focus on it. We may not get the right answer right away. We may go down a bunch of blind alleys, but I think if we don't start to think about our employee base and resource differently in terms of giving it complete wellness, financial wellness, emotional wellness, and really measure it, as opposed to most of us just do, you know, are you happy at work? And that's not bad. It's just not enough.
What are some of the things that you do, Tom, to get centered or make sure that you are experiencing some work-life balance?
Well, some might argue I don't really have much balance, so I think I'm okay. But you know, what do you do about it? First, I think everybody does it differently, right? Like, some people are sports, some people read. What I try to do is I really do try to develop the ability to ignore. Like, how do you just turn it off, right? Like, so, you know, how do you not look at the phone? So there are times when I just decide I am not looking at email for a certain time. Once a year, we used to, before pre-pandemic, we would go on like a 2 or 3 week expedition, my wife and I literally would like not do email for 2 weeks. And when you do, you just ignore it. Like, suddenly your brain and your emotions and stuff can fill it in, and you can get some perspective. Mm-hmm. So I really try to ignore it so that I can create perspective for myself. If I create perspective for myself, then some of those things that I'm burned out about, you just care less about. You're like, yeah, okay, the person was not very nice to me. Okay, maybe they're having a bad day, as opposed to making it about you.
Well, that does sound extremely healthy. Tom, before I let you go, I'd love to hear about what makes you optimistic about the future, whether it's the role of business or, in general, things that that make you feel like it's going to be a bright future ahead.
I think it's people. I think it's just when you think about people, that's the source of all success, right? Like people create patents, they build plants, they come up with new plays. It's people that are the source of all success. And I am so excited that people seem more engaged in making the world better. It's a little tumultuous, right? Like it's hard. So the idea of broadening inclusion, more diversity, more equity, it's like, who knows how many great plays we haven't seen, or because we've got, underinvested neighborhoods and kids who have crappy educations and no one's paying attention. So I'm excited that what we're doing is we're starting to say, look, this people is the source of all success. And to the extent we can turn it loose, and people want to do it, like people are engaged, they want to add value. Like, I don't know anybody who says they don't want to add value. Some maybe not in ways that we would appreciate, but there are so many people that I think if we turn them loose, that's what makes me optimistic. And I think the institutions we have, whether it's business or government, will adapt if we as people drive them to change. But it really has to start with each of us individually.
Tom, we set out to talk about corporate purpose and ended with people. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie.